one of the main things that I love about COVID, and even though a lot of people think that 2020 was a bad year, it's the fact that men's groups have actually just popped up, and now we have a plethora of different avenues for men to get help. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to someone that had access to one of those groups, and we're going to talk about his story. Hi, this is Jarrod Boucher, and welcome to the Secret Men's Business Podcast. On today's show, we're going to be speaking to Jarrod Boucher, who is the person that runs the White Owl for Men organisation, which I love that name, and he's going to tell us all about it and about himself. Jarrod, how are you?
I'm good, thanks, Joe. How are you, mate?
I'm good, finally. I love it. I love the fact that I love the fact that I can interview people and I feel like I know them, but with you, I feel like I really know you.
I think
we've gone through a lot, haven't we?
We have, mate. We have gone through a lot, and we share the same haircut, and we've a lot of commonalities.
Yeah. So before we go into the White Owl, let's talk about you as a person. So I want to give the audience just a bit of a quick, introduction to you. Like, tell us a bit about you.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Yeah, my name's Jarrod. I'm a family man. I've got a lovely wife and two lovely daughters, Lily and Holly, who are 10 and 6. I live in the lovely part of Melbourne called Seddon, which is kind of like nestled in between Yarraville and Footscray, which is a great part of Melbourne. I love my footy. I bag for the Carlton Football Club, which is good and sometimes not. And I have got a vested interest in mental health, men's health, and also prostate cancer, which is a concern and a problem that needs to be addressed for men's health, because I've got lived experience through that. So that's a little bit about myself, Joe.
Thank you. Just to let you know, up the Tigers, and I'm from Altona, so I live on the same side of town as you.
There's nothing wrong with the West.
Nothing wrong with the West. So the White Owl for Men, I would have missed it if it wasn't for that catchy name. I was, because I normally, scroll through Instagram and LinkedIn and all that and see things that pop out, and so that popped out for me. So can you tell us a little bit about how that name came about, and what does White Owl represent for men's mental health?
White Owl came about, if you don't mind, I'll just tell a little bit of a backstory. Is that White Owl was founded as a positive legacy in 2015 by a group of friends, for two friends who passed away in pretty quick succession in 2015. One to prostate cancer in his early 40s, and another good friend who unfortunately committed suicide, struggling with depression. And one of those people, a good friend, his favourite animal was the owl, and he had little statues of owls all over the place. And also the other friend who committed suicide, his nickname was the polar bear. And so we kind of like just put two and two together. Polar bear's white, owl was the figurine, and so White Owl came up, and it's pretty catchy. Catchy, and so I know it's a little bit unique, but it works, and it does kind of like go back to our two friends who who lost their lives in 2015, and the positive legacy that we're driving forward from that event.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I mean, like, Secret Men's Business actually came about under the same circumstances. I lost 3 friends all in the same week.
Wow.
And I was the last person to see all 3 of them. So that's how I created that. And I quite like the concept of utilizing the legacy of other people. That's a really cool idea, because it means that you have a motivation and a driver. So what is it that, I know that, have you noticed it's been a lot of men's groups that have popped up over the last 12 months? I mean, I started my men's group the same time as you, so we're sort of veterans in regards to everyone else. But what is your foundation? What do you offer? What is it that do you offer everything, or is there a more of a specialty?
Yeah, no, good question, Joe. It's so White Owl, we are about men's health awareness. But we do focus, and there's a lot of mental health issues out there, but we do focus on prostate cancer, and we do focus on mental health. So I've got lived experience through mental health. I've had episodes of anxiety in the past, and I manage that these days through medication and through exercise and support from my friends and family. Um, and so from that, we wanted to create this positive legacy of having driving greater awareness in men's health, which in 2015 wasn't there. It is there now, and that's great. And so I'm
Yeah.
happy for the whole landscape to be very crowded now, because that means that a lot more people are talking about men's health. And we also our charity partner is APC, Australian Prostate Centre. So obviously APC deal with prostate cancer, but this day and age deal with a more holistic view of men's health, which includes mental health. So all the money that we raise goes towards APC. So our team, our committee of 13 people, are all volunteers. We've all got our day jobs. We've all got our lives, but we invest our time into White Owl as well.
Yeah, I mean I love that too. Is that there's a whole group of groups that are money driven, and then there's you. Similar to like you're inspiring me now because I sometimes get a little I get a little bit lost thinking, what am I doing? Oh my god, this is all volunteer. I've got 37 volunteers or something, and like you sort of think, what am I doing? But then when you hear stories like this, it inspires you to know that there is, you don't need to have to get paid, right? You're doing it because there's a passion. And I'm guessing yours is
Yeah.
because A, you've got your friends, you've got the lived in experience and so on. So can I just ask, what are the main things that you've noticed between 2015 and today? Like, it was pretty quiet back then, wasn't it? Like,
Oh,
how did it shift for you? Was it COVID or before
no,
that?
no. I think it was before that. I think COVID was a very big 2020 driver, and most certainly accelerated the discussion around mental health, and for men. But I did see a really, from 2017, 18 onwards, royal commissions, greater focus from the state governments and from the federal governments, particularly on mental health. And so, for me, that is a fantastic progression of us as a society about how serious we are taking mental health and
Mm,
mental health for men. And
mm,
by no means, of course, mental health is not just a something that's for men. It affects all of us. But for it to be a greater focus, and for real attention by our government, and not just charities and organisations that try and do their best. It's great to see that it is in the spotlight by those who control the policies around that.
mm. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Everything fits in like a puzzle. Like if it wasn't for, say, our commitment by being volunteers, it
Yeah,
doesn't spread the awareness, and everything then trickles up. So that's because back in the day, it was really difficult. I found it really hard to get people in 2015 to even show interest because no one wanted to admit there was mental health problems. But now it seems that we've turned a corner and people are open to talking about it, being vulnerable.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have probably would have sat here 5 years ago and said that, I've had issues of anxiety, and I treat myself and manage that these days. I would have been very, I would have not told anyone. But now here I am today talking to you, Joe, and when we've got to be able to be open about this, and
Mm,
also show that there is support mechanisms in place to be able to manage that. But the second point I wanted to make too, really quickly, is isn't it funny how it's bottom up. It wasn't our governments that were driving the mental health discussion 5 years ago. It was us, the people,
mm.
dealing with it and saying we need to take action. So, what you're doing, Joe, in Secret Men's Business, and what we're doing in White Owl is a perfect example of that.
Yeah. So I guess because I didn't know about the prostate cancer bit, do you mind if we just talk about that a little bit? Not
Yeah.
personally, but more about from a mental health perspective, maybe through your experience to your own life and maybe through people that you know, what are some of the mental health implications of being diagnosed, say with prostate cancer, and how have you noticed that mental health strategies have come into play to help men that are dealing with that? Because I can imagine it could be it's a shock.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I just wanted to be clear too. I haven't suffered from prostate cancer before, but I've got friends and family who have, and of course my friend who passed away from that. And I'm not a doctor, so I just want to make that clear.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's the anxiety that being diagnosed with cancer creates, and I think it's also wrapped up around being a man and not wanting I suppose open up and communicate and get your support network around you to support you through this, a challenge that a man would have when getting treated for prostate cancer. It also goes back to the issue of men not getting checked up regularly enough. And so prostate cancer is a perfectly treatable cancer if it's caught early enough. It's quite easily treated. Unfortunately, men,
Hmm.
because we're silly in this regard.
Because of the finger, but
Yeah,
you can have a blood
it's
test
a PSA.
now.
It's a
If you,
PSA test.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's easy.
there's no. It's funny. Like I know that you and I know that, but I can guarantee that half the people listening don't know that.
Exactly, it's a blood test. You do not need to go into the doctor and have the proverbial finger up the backside. It can. I've had PSA test before for prostate cancer. It is easy.
Yeah, and is
Uh,
that because it's when you see anything on television, right? I know television is all made up, but it is all about the finger, and so there's a misconception. How do we
yeah,
change? How do we, are you doing anything through your work to
yeah.
get that message across? So that's part of your mission.
Yeah, so that's exactly spot on, Joe. So it's what we do. It's through that awareness piece. What we're about. So we've got some very important strategic pillars. And one of those strategic pillars is increasing awareness around not only the facts around mental health and prostate cancer, but dispelling any misconceptions around treatment of prostate cancer.
Mm.
So we do a lot of communication through our socials around what really happens when you go and get a prostate cancer check,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it's just a blood test.
Yeah. And so let's just take it to another step. So the majority of people, I'm hoping, are open. What do you suggest, or how do you help men that are in denial, that don't want to actually, they end up not taking on the information and their anxiety gets really, really out of control? Is there anything that you guys suggest for those men to do?
It's and if you don't mind, Joe, I'll just go back to my lived experience. It's taking that first step.
Mm.
So I remember, back in 2012, I just had high levels of anxiety over weeks and weeks and weeks, losing a lot of weight. It was impacting my family, it was impacting my wife in particular, and it's horrible. We all know that for people who have suffered from anxiety and mental health issues before, and my wife said, please go and speak to your doctor. And I didn't want to do that, but I did. So
Mm.
it's a brave step that you take, but it's that first step that you do take
Mm.
that leads on to further steps. Speaking to your doctor, speaking with a specialist, speaking to a friend about it. Because if you take that first step, which is always the hardest, then the steps that you take after that are easier and easier and easier until you start to build that mechanism of support and treatment around you to be able to manage it.
Yeah.
So it's that first step, Joe.
Yeah, and I'm going to add an extra step to that. I think that the key is really to normalize asking for help. Like
Yes.
I guess, how are you finding the guys? Are they open to everything, like the ones that are connected to White Owl, or are they? Is there still? Do you notice that there's still a bit of resistance from some of the guys? Because from the Secret Men's Business perspective, our mission is self-acceptance, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of people are on board, but when it comes to doing, say, exercises or activities or taking action, I notice that they don't. So there's still a sort of resistance. Like I want to,
Yeah.
but I'm not going to do that. I can't do that because if I do that, that means I'm weak or whatever. What are you finding?
I find within the White Owl team, and I just want to be clear too, is that we've got not all the White Owl team. The committee is men. There is also a good contingent. I think there is 4 ladies on the committee as well too, and that's needed because men make stupid decisions a lot.
We've started that. We've got 3 now. So I've started taking advice from other people.
Well done.
Yeah.
One of our pillars is walking the walk, and so we do like to, if we're going to be out there communicating about, about mental health awareness, about prostate awareness, then we've got to be shown to be doing the right thing. So I'm a big bloke, I'm a little overweight, but I try and exercise a lot, and gee, it helps with the mind when you do exercise. It does clear the head. It feels good. And you do get that lovely rush at the end of it. We do go and get our PSA checks. We do talk to people if we're feeling a bit down. We're not perfect, and no one should ever kick themselves if they're not doing the right thing about treating themselves. It's just once again about trying to make that first step. And about communicating that to the wider community as well.
Okay. And so let's take it another step. So my dad had prostate cancer, and he got treated. And one of the things that I noticed quite like clearly was something changed within him in regards to his masculinity. Like, I don't know, he didn't tell me, but I'm assuming that there was an erection problem, or there was something that changed in regards to his sex life. So I noticed a change in him. Again, can you maybe talk a little about what happens with some of the guys that maybe, get treated? Like, do you have any information about what they experience? Like, is my own point there? Is that what happens? So I don't really know properly, but I saw that with my dad.
And to be honest, Joe, once again, I just want to be, I think if anyone's got any questions around this, they should contact APC. They're easily contactable. They're on the internet.
I'll make sure that the link's linked below. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate it. But it's there is the treatment of prostate cancer is relatively easy if it's caught early enough. And I'm thank God that it was caught with your dad early enough, Joe, and that he was successfully treated. It's for those where it's not caught early enough and it becomes a battle, then obviously there's all sorts of issues that result from that treatment and the actual cancer itself too. But all I can really say is that if there's any concerns about what happens to my body or my mind, if I think I've got prostate cancer or there is something that I think is a problem, please contact APC. And
or even your doctor, or just I just think the point that I was trying to bring up is that there's a battle we're trying to deal with the cancer, and then sometimes there's also the psychological impact of what happens after that. Like, I know that some people leading up to prostate cancer, for example, they have trouble urinating, right? And so again, that could be a mental problem. And it's trying to get men to not be stoic and say, I can get through this. I don't, it's okay. It's trying to get them to be, like your wife was saying to you, go and speak to someone. It's not, doesn't show weakness, does it? Just to be honest and to be able to deal with your body without shame.
Exactly, spot on, mate. It's not weakness, it's strength. It's about doing the right thing, and so that's the transition. That's the transformational change that we need to get right amongst all of us. Is that there is no weakness in having conversations with your friends about anything and seeking support. If you've got, if there's something, if you're a bit cloudy upstairs, or if you've got something wrong with you, please reach out and speak to your GP, speak to the specialist, speak to your friends, and take that first step. It's strength. It's not weakness. Yeah,
and it's slowly growing. So with the younger blokes, and this is just, I guess, a personal question. It's not really a White Owl question or a SMB question. It's, what do you think as a father, as an older man, as a man that is, part of a men's group? What advice would you give all the young guys coming up, in regards to how they can see the world differently to what we did? Because I know that when we were younger, I think we're about the same age, you and I, but when we were younger, we had a different perception that caused us to be where we are now. Again, what advice would you give them?
if I had to go back in time and maybe have a bit of a chat with my younger self, and I think that's a good way to do it. And just to be clear, 48 is not old. Thank you, Joe.
No, no, I said older. I didn't say old. Older guy.
I would I'd say that mental health and issues around mental health are not just the domain of the older men. It is something that can anyone of any age, and so it's really important to to understand that. And if you're feeling that you're not right, don't think that you're invincible because you're 22 years old and that you can ride it out just because you play footy or you're in pretty fight and fit condition. It's always, no matter what age you are, you always got to take that first step. And so, that's what I would tell myself in the younger day. And what I'd probably also do is just to try not to get into those bad habits or that, may cause issues around your health later on in life, and always maintain a pretty active type of lifestyle so that, it's really got a positive impact upon how you feel upstairs in your head and how your body feels as well too. I wish I've been jogging now for 4 or 5 years. By no means am I going to be Robert D. Costello, but I wish I started
even you mentioning his name shows.
I know it shows our age.
I'm nodding and I'm going. I bet you a lot of people won't know who he is.
Yeah,
but
a son of Bob.
I mean, I get. It's true, isn't it? Hindsight is such an amazing thing. Like I really wish that I could be what I'm feeling now back then. And I'm thinking, why wasn't I not so motivated? But I guess the thing that I'm noticing in my clinic is what you just mentioned is it's happening. Like younger guys are coming to clinic because they're experiencing anxiety from COVID. Like they didn't have the skills to prepare for a crisis, and then so because I think they grew up in a time when they didn't have an opportunity to experience the other side because they were given a lot of stuff. I guess not intentionally, but they were given, I guess, a free rein in regards to say when I was young. I remember my dad said to me, if you want to go to a private school, you need to go work. So we learned these different skills. And the other thing I think that is really needed is acceptance, because a lot of guys now, there's so much more pressure with social media and comparing yourself to other people that they are struggling with anxiety because they want to be something else. Yeah. So do you feel what's your mission moving forward with White Owl? Where do you see yourself going?
We see ourselves continuing to obviously raise awareness. We are looking we are wanting and will hold a major event in 2021. We're in conversation with the AFL and Marvel Stadium to have our event. We've just got to lock in upon that date, and things are obviously a bit fluid at the moment with the footy fixture. And we continue to raise that awareness around mental health and prostate cancer, and support our charity partner the best we can, and walk the walk. That's what we want to do in 2021, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be like a theme for you, is walking the walk. So I love that.
Thanks, mate.
So thank you so much for taking time out and and also sharing your story and being vulnerable there, because again, I didn't really know about that second part, and I appreciate you bringing it up. And like you said, 5 years ago, you would have said nothing, but today you just said it so easily and you shared it. So thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. So if anyone wants to get any information about White Owl or about anything that was talked about today, just make sure you look down below, and be listening to the Secret Men's Business podcast. The podcast is out on Monday. Don't forget, I keep saying this, subscribe and click like so you get notified. Okay guys, see you next time. Bye.